E3 2018 has kicked off, and as always, EA are the first to show off their wares. It was a pretty bland conference, to be honest, though the games announced, and some shown after the fact, do give us a bit more hope. So I'm gonna whip through the key news, picking out the good, the bad and the weird. Do share your thoughts in the comments as we go along. Let's start with Anthem, a game that, by all accounts, is both good, bad, and a little weird. It's BioWare's take on the shared world action game, which is one of those awkward MMO but not quite MMO things where loads of people are dumped into a world that then serves up a traditional co-op game. BioWare's pitch is to give it the character and narrative missing from other examples of the genre, like Destiny and The Division. Though the demo they brought to E3 shows none of this, making it hard to gauge the merits of the approach. In the full game, the action stuff happens in the shared space, a vast jungle world made up of plummeting cliffs and warrens of hidden caves. Here you'll fly around doing story missions or digging into strongholds, which sound like Destiny's raids, complete with the promise of tastier loot. In between this shared roaming, you return to your mobile base, the Strider, or the city of Fort Tarsis, which is where the single-player story plays out. Think of Destiny's Citadel, but without other randoms doing dance emotes. BioWare say this is where the consequences of your actions will be more personally felt, but without any solid examples given, this could just mean someone sells you a gun with a discount because you killed a monster. Oh, and there's no romancing to be done either. My condolences to all the horn dogs. The bit they did show us, flying into the action in an exosuit, is visually spectacular and mechanically unexceptional. I like the idea of having to pilot your overheating jetpack through waterfalls and pools of water to keep the heat down, but otherwise this is a standard evolution of the third-person shooting in Mass Effect Andromeda. It has a similar focus on comboing powers between different suit types. Here someone freezes enemies before nuking them with rockets, for example. Though the mess of damage numbers on screen is faintly ridiculous and does need toning down. The 4 available suits, the Stompy one, the Speedy one, the Electrical one, and the All-Rounder one, look nifty enough, and unlike Destiny, you aren't locked to one class, so you can play with different tools as the action unfolds. Not to repeatedly hammer the Destiny comparison, but that game made up for its lack of content by just feeling so damn nice to play. It's a place your fingers are happy to hang out in. Seeing a studio like BioWare, which is best known for storytelling, trying to bet big on exceptional action is a tad worrying at this point. We just hope there's a bit more hiding out there in the jungle. Next up, I'm sticking Battlefield V firmly in the good column. The onstage presentation was largely reserved for the inevitable announcement of a Royale mode.
It's Royale.
Allegedly reimagined for Battlefield, whatever that means. I'm in two minds whether this is a good fit for DICE. On one hand, they've got good form with large spaces full of pretend soldiers. But what I love about the series is the way it encourages you to work together to achieve more unusual objectives beyond kill more of the other people. The Battle Royale genre is pretty reductive in this sense, but with no info on Battlefield's plans, it's very hard to judge at this point. No, it was far more interesting to see what they did have at the show, a demo showing off a substantial sweep of tweaked ideas. The focus this time seems to be on reshaping the flow of the battlefield. You are able to drag heavy gun emplacements with larger vehicles to keep attackers on their toes, and every class is now equipped with a toolbox for building new defences, such as filling in destroyed walls or blocking a road with hedgehogs. Those are the big metal ones, not the cute Beatrix Potter types. You can dig foxholes in the mud and then line them with sandbags, all adding up to a more flexible space to play in. Oh, and the house destruction looks delicious. This time around, damage more accurately reflects where you crunch into buildings, and damage walls will deteriorate over time, slowly crumbling away like a Cadbury's flake. In a lineup of games that largely consisted of big things to come, here was a tangible collection of improvements, and no season pass or loot boxes to boot. Very good.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you just saw was the worldwide reveal of Command & Conquer Rivals.
Now a quick trip into bad/weird territory for Command & Conquer Rivals. Yes, it's a mobile game, so not exactly under our remit, but I felt a deep ache seeing the once proud series reduced to this. I mean, they turned Kane into a weird Pixar character. It's just not on. Showing strategy games at a press conference is always tricky. Rivals solves one part of the problem by having a match that can play out in 5 minutes. More worryingly, it didn't seem to have the ideas or drama to fill even that. I wanted to see the might have nod, instead I just nodded off. Oh, and a special prize for the commentator trying to fill dead air with this absolute doozy of a line.
A nice little strategy game for those of you out there. It's a good genre.
I hope they're paying him extra for that.
What's going on, Vince? How you feeling today?
I'm feeling great.
Next up is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, a game that exists as a name and not a lot else. It doesn't even have a logo or concept art, so I'm just going to have to show you Respawn's Vince Zampella instead. This is the Star Wars game the Titanfall studio began work on 2 years ago, and is set shortly after the events of Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. For those of you who have blotted that film from your memory, by which I mean everyone, this is the period where the Jedi are being hunted by the instruction of Order 66. We do know that it's a third-person action-adventure game, and the team is headed up by Stig Asmussen, who directed God of War 3. That instantly brings to mind a hack-and-slasher in the style of The Force Unleashed, but I'm hoping Respawn can make something a little slicker than that. Give me the spiritual successor to Jedi Knight, and I'll be very happy indeed.
Hello there.
In other Star Wars news, Battlefront 2 is still adding new characters and modes. After the loot box debacle, EA looked like they're tiptoeing around the game a bit, sending out a rather nervous looking man called Dennis to tell us that the characters from the Clone Wars are coming to the game. Apparently, lots of people requested to play as General Grievous, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker and Count Dooku, which you can clearly hear from their reaction in the room.
Joining them is the Dark Lord and leader of the Separatist Alliance, Count Dooku.
They're also adding a new Starfighter mode built exclusively around dogfighting in the hero ships. And it all sounds fine and is free, but you can't help but feel that the world has moved on. The big news from FIFA World is that EA has swiped the UEFA Champions League from Pro Evolution Soccer. I'm pretty sure that leaves PES with some virtual grass and a football. Poor them. I'll admit that I'm not the world's biggest football expert, so I asked my FIFA-obsessed 17-year-old brother if this new move meant as much to him as it seems to mean to EA. He tells me that it's good because you get the official graphics and layouts for the Champions League just like it is on TV. It also means they can expand Ultimate Team by adding different tournaments. But he tempers this with a warning. It will add more content, but knowing FIFA, it won't be as good as it could be, so I'm not particularly bothered. Also, Southampton won't be involved because they aren't in the Champions League. I think his last point only really affects Southampton fans, so you can probably discount it. Of course, there's plenty of adjustment under the glossy presentation gubbins. One of the biggest is a perfect timing idea that adds extra heft to shots with a timed second button press. Hit the button just as your foot connects with the ball, and it gains speed and accuracy. Mistime the press and you'll wallop it into the crowd. It sounds a bit like Gears of War's active reload, but with feet instead of hands. I'm putting this in the good column. Hooray! Unravel 2 is a thing, and it's a thing that's happening right now. Yes, EA did the classic, here's a game and you can play it today, which is probably my favourite E3 trope. This is the follow-up to 2016's delightful physics platformer, again seeing a little yarn figure swing about the Swedish countryside on a grappling hook made from his own body. This time he's merging with a second friend for co-op puzzling. I've already got a video about it up on the channel where I go into much more depth, so go watch that now. Also, if you are an Origin Access subscriber, there's a free trial of the opening chunk of the game, so you can play that right now too.
The greatest disruption to the consumption of entertainment media in the last 5 years is the combination of streaming plus subscription.
I need some help deciding whether this next one is good, bad, or weird. We're talking streaming and subscribing, which is pretty dry, so I'll try and keep it brief. EA are pushing into the streaming business, building a Netflix for games that lets you stream them to TVs, phones, or low-end computers that otherwise couldn't cope. It's a technology that has been edging towards respectability, from the dark days of OnLive to the "it seems fine" version of PlayStation Now. EA has shown its as yet unnamed service behind closed doors, and people say it works, but then these things tend to work behind closed doors. It's when you open that door and release it into the wild that they stall and stutter. Putting that aside, the question is whether we want to see our gaming ecosystem fragment further into publisher-controlled streaming services. I keep envisioning a dark future where I'm juggling 10 different subscriptions to access different chunks of my game library. I like the ease of the tech, but I wish it was coming from outside the publisher bubble. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on the matter too. I'm less concerned about the prospects of Origin Access Premier. This is a beefed up version of the existing Origin Games Library subscription. You don't stream these games, you just download them. But by paying for premium, you get access to all EA's PC games when they launch. It's £90 for a year's sub, so this year you'd get Battlefield V, Anthem, FIFA 19 and Madden 19, which is back on PC for the first time in a while. If you plan to buy more than 2 EA games this year, this is probably a pretty good deal, and there's a vault of over 100 games already there. Of course, mileage may vary, but I think it edges into the good column.
Is this real?
Sea of Solitude goes in the good column too. Partly because the game's creative director, Cornelia Geppert, was wearing the first Kraftwerk t-shirt I've ever seen in an E3 presentation, and secondly because her game was a rare patch of novelty in an otherwise conservative conference. You play as a young woman named Kay, who is struck with such a severe loneliness that she's transformed into a monster. She's now exploring a flooded world that's home to other monsters, trying to work out the problems that have left her this way. In motion, it reminds me of Submerged, another game about sailing around a sinking city, but the art style and story direction here is much more my bag. EA are developing a pretty good track record with their indie support. Unravel and Faye are both a delight, so high hopes the winning streak continues here. That's all the news that's fit to print from EA at E3. A couple of quirky gems, a few old reliables, and a slightly underwhelming debut of their next big game, all leaving plenty of questions to be answered over coming months. I hope you found this rundown of the news helpful. Please do offer your own thoughts in the comments below. If you have any questions about the games, do let us know. I'll try my best to dig up some answers. Please subscribe to Rock Paper Shotgun for more E3 news and everything else, of course. We'll see you again soon. Bye!